for and the 11th round of the Privilege Insurance British GT Championship. Now, we should be a world away from the conditions that we saw at Knock Hill. There's no mist and rain yet. It is slightly warmer, but it does feel like it's going to rain. It's going to be a GT race. It's over to Martin and Ben.
Kelvin Burt in the leading GTO car. There's Marino Franchitti. They can finish as low as 8th and they'll still be GTO champions, even if their teammates win the GTO class.
So the GTO title all but done. The GT title, though, is still open. And it's those cars that head us round to the green flag. Dave Warnock on pole position. And the Viper gets a big squirrel as Rob Wilson unleashes the horsepower. He's trying to take the lead from Dave Warnock. Warnock normally cautious on the first lap to avoid damage and trouble. Looks like he's going to defend hard here. Holds the lead down into Flex. Callum Lockie seen from the back in his GT class Porsche after infringements in qualifying.
Up front, look at Dave Warnock, just getting away from Rob Wilson, and in fact right behind him the TVR of Bobby Verdon-Roe, putting the pressure on. Some battles behind them too as the Quaife tries to move up a position.
Well, it looks as though Dave Warnock's really got the hammer down. Very impressive starting indeed from Warnock, perhaps trying to seize the initiative in the championship battle. Field sorting itself out further behind. There is Tim Sugden right ahead of the GTO Viper, right at the front of the GT field. But here comes Rob Wilson. Now I wonder what he's got in terms of horsepower. These cars very evenly matched in terms of outright speed.
Wilson's trying to go around the outside here. Has he done it? He's locking his brakes. No, he hasn't. Dave Warnock protects it, but oh, he's lost it right in front of the other two.
Well, that's a real drama for Warnock. Not only has he spun away the lead, but he's in a very tight piece of the track with the whole field right behind. Luckily, everybody will avoid him, but he must keep the engine alive and not get himself beached, as happened at Croft last year when he spun out of the final turn. So Rob Wilson in the Viper leads, but look at that! Right behind, Kelvin Burt takes second place from the TVR Speed 12. I bet he won't be able to hold that around the high-speed sweeps, and around goes Richard Stanton. And he was in the top 3 in the GTO class. Yeah, Kelvin points to the right-hand side, and through goes Bobby Verdon-Roe. No surprises there. The Porsche's got the handling, but it hasn't got the grunt of the big GT cars.
Yeah, we're out onto the fast section of track now where the horsepower comes into its own, and Kelvin Burt very comfortably in front in his class and heading towards that championship win.
Backed up by his teammate Matt Turner behind in the orange car. Well, Kelvin Burt may not have the outright speed of the front runners in terms of horsepower, but he's got it in terms of driverability and great handling too from the GT3Rs. Third place, reigning champion Mark Sumpter's car. Sean Balfe at the wheel ahead of the GT class Stealth, a new car in the class. And Callum Lockie making up places. There's the GT class Ultima in front of him. And right ahead the GTO Viper. Curtis Hales at the helm of that one. Callum really hauling them in up the hill. See what I mean about the power difference between the classes? Very evident there on that long power sapping stretch.
Callum desperate to make up places, but sensibly not trying to do too many people into the chicane. It can always go wrong. Up front, here comes Rob Wilson. Tyres are always a factor here at Thruxton. The tyres do a lot of work around the fast corners. He's got to protect them. Here comes Dave Warnock on his charge. Back up the field. Oh, it's all getting a bit tight into the chicane.
He went for 2 and then decided he'd try and go for the 3rd as well, but the Marcus has to get around somehow, so Warnock sensibly not involving himself in contact. But as that, yeah, 2 gears, he said, I got past the first 2 all right. Not entirely sure that was a fair comment there, but in the heat of the moment, as he's trying to recover from his earlier mistake, I'm sure Warnock felt that that was justified.
Taking a look at the replay here, you can see Warnock was leading. He was defending his line. That was fine. Wilson tried to go around. It was a pure mistake, that, from Dave Warnock. And look at the other two. Viper to the inside, TVR to the outside. They both made it through safely.
And as they check themselves up, that's where Kelvin Burt got right up behind them. Now on board with Curtis Hales. There is Callum Lockie ahead. And Hales shouldn't be able to catch Lockie. He's got a less powerful car, so there's problems for the Dave Wells Porsche.
Well, that's a great shame. No luck for Callum today. No money meant there's no way he was been really able to defend his title this year, and it's drifting away. Quaife, Ultima and Porsche also going through.
Well, Callum's car misfiring horribly and not at the sort of speed you'd expect him to be going around. I'm sure he'll be heading for the pits and ultimately probably retirement here as well. Well, here is the Viper in traffic. Race leader Rob Wilson dealing with the Marcuses, and right behind him Bobby Verdon-Roe. And the TVR team have changed their normal driving lineup in the last couple of races. Verdon-Roe starting and then handing over to Michael Caine at the end of the race in the hope that something will change their bad luck.
Callum limping round to the pits. There's smoke from the back of the car. It looks like today's all over. into the pits. I wonder if they can do anything. He lost an alternator belt at Donington, remember? It might be something simple like that again, I suppose.
Second and third in GTO, there is Matt Turner in the orange and purple car. Right behind is Sean Balfe, and closing up as well is Tim Sugden in the white car with the blue stripes. So a three-way battle for second in the class. And somehow Matt Turner got himself boxed in behind the Mantis of David Dove. Not sure why, because in fact Sean Balfe was right behind the Mantis. Maybe he picked up a toe and just had the extra bit of speed.
Meanwhile, back down in the pits, Marino Franchitti in deep conversation with chief mechanic. Kelvin Burt is 21 seconds off the lead, but he's 8 seconds ahead of Balfe right here.
Well, this is a good three-way squabble. Identical cars, and looks to be pretty even driver talent. I think maybe Matt Turner might be struggling with some sort of a problem. I wonder if tyres are a factor this early on. It looks as though Sean Balfe and now Tim Sugden are quicker. Sugden slipped through in the complex, and he's heading away after Balfe. So looks as though Turner and Horner's car may not be a factor in the end.
Callum Lockie's car in the pits, an investigation going into the engine, wondering if those belts have been thrown once again.
Well, that's wretched luck for the defending champion, who's likely to see his title go this race or the next. Tim Sugden on the inside, and Turner...
Well, that's tight stuff, isn't it? Side by side, Turner getting back ahead of Sugden. Looked as though it was going to be a problem for a moment, but both drivers sorted it out.
Very edge-of-the-seat stuff indeed. It was impossible to call who was going to have the worst of that, but in the end they managed to get through, and I think without contact, Ben, which is probably some sort of a record there. And again, Turner defending again all over the grass on the inside. Sugden flies around the outside, takes the second apex at Cobb, and then as they head out of Seagrave, he is ahead and should stay there, I think.
Now they've got something fixed on Callum Lockie's car, so he comes back out onto the circuit. Meanwhile, Michael Caine preparing to take over the TVR, which is in second place, some 6 seconds behind Rob Wilson.
And here's Dave Warnock, third place in the GT class, but only 7th place overall. You can see him coming through the GTO cars at the moment. He's 48 seconds back, and that means an early pit call as he hands over to Mike Jordan. Jordan was awesome in qualifying. We'll be hoping to be able to reel in the leaders in the race.
It's going to be tough for him. Meanwhile, here comes Matt Turner, the American, jumping out as the rather larger frame of Edward Horner squeezes his way into the driver's seat. Mike Jordan has taken over from Dave Warnock. Belts tightened away, he goes. That looks like a good stop from the Lister crew, and in comes Rob Wilson.
Yeah, very slick job by the Lister crew, and the Viper team going for tyres. It has been eating its tyres. Now, normally it's the front left that really takes the aggravation here at Thruxton, but they're going for a full left side change. And Ben, that might be a victory key, or it may cost them too much time.
Well, that's true, Martin, but look, they've actually done the tyres even before they finished getting the driver in, so it won't be a problem. Kelvin Burt, meanwhile, is now up to second overall.
And Amanda is with Dave Warnock.
Mr. Warnock, what happened at the start?
All my fault. I lost it on cold tyres. Completely my fault.
But you did make up a lot of places there.
Yeah, I did, but we're still a long way behind. So.
Bobby Verden-Rowe brings in the TVR Speed 12. It was the race leader with Kelvin Burt in second. Michael Caine will jump in, and they will need to be very quick indeed to stay ahead. They should be able to pass the Viper if this is a decent change. Tim Harvey coming round then up Woodham's Hill, but out goes the TVR Speed 12. A change for the lead, I feel, on the cards. Yes, here comes Kelvin Burt in the white Porsche. He will take the overall lead, and I think the Viper may just overhaul the TVR before it gets back up to speed. It does so, and Amanda's in the pits.
I'm now here with Bobby Verden-Rowe. Bobby, that was a blindingly quick pit stop, but it never ceases to amaze me how hard it is to get out of that car.
Yeah, it's not that easy. You can sort of swing underneath the bar like a bit of a monkey, but it's all right, actually. But, you know, I don't know how quick it was, but the biggest problem wasn't the pit stop. We've got quite a lot of understeer, to say the least, and I don't think we're lapping at all competitively, so I just hope the tyres at last.
Well, you can see the tyre build-up on the side of the circuit from everybody's worn-out tyres. Kelvin Burt, the race leader, right behind him, Tim Harvey in the Viper. And as he did with the TVR earlier, Kelvin waves to the right-hand side. By goes the Viper. Viper looks to have the door a little bit open on the right-hand side. I wonder if that'll be a penalty or whether the officials think it's safely latched. It seems to be at the bottom, the little window frame popping up. But Tim Harvey in the lead and in traffic. He'll try and ease his way away now from the TVR and from the Lister Storm. But with the severe tyre wear everybody's experiencing, those left-side tyres may be a big advantage for the Viper crew.
Getting past the red Lotus Esprit there, Rob Croydon is in the lead of those two. He's driving on his own. Matt Johnson is the other of the Lotuses, and meanwhile Sean Balfe is going slowly. He was in 4th place, 24 seconds behind, but now he's in real trouble, a puncture on that left rear.
Yeah, it works hard as the cars tend to slide a little bit around all the high-speed right-handers. The Paragon team are ready for their driver change, which they'll do at the same time, but who knows what other damage might be caused by that flapping tyre. And the worry, of course, with a slow car is in traffic. Kelvin Burt right behind the Tuscanaire shows you the closing speed, and obviously not happy with the way traffic worked for him there either.
No, that's right. Kelvin's done a long first stint. The car ahead of him is the Tuscanaire. Steve Hyde now driving that, taking over from Richard Stanton, so they've stopped. Kelvin trying to come up and lap him. Kelvin putting in a great many laps before handing over to Marino Franchitti, and surely be coming in fairly soon. In fact, yes, look, he's holding it tight. He's coming in this time around. And there's Sean Balfe still trying to make it back to the pits.
On such a high-speed circuit, it must be really demoralising to see fast cars going past you probably twice before you get back. Out gets Kelvin Burt, in gets Marino Franchitti. Discipline out on the track and in the pit stops has been superb from this driver pairing and the Par Motorsport team, and it's not much of a surprise to see them looking so competitive, but yes, problems with the belts or the radio there. Marino having a slightly longer stop than is normal.
Oh, the time's ticking away. This is not good news. Away he goes. Remember, they don't have to win the class here, but they still want to.
And eventually, it must seem like an age since he passed the pits last time. In comes Sean Balfe. Mark Sumter will get in. The championship gone for them, no question about it. Last year's champion, Mark Sumter. This year's champion, well, looks like being Kelvin Burt and Marino Franchitti.
Somebody's off on the grass. That's Philip Hopkins, and he's taken a long trip off the tarmac. Bounces across, gets back on, looks as though the car's basically all right, and just lost a couple of places. There goes Marino Franchitti trying to go past him. But look at the acceleration of that GT car.
And of this GT car as well, Mike Jordan in the Lister Storm having trouble with the Ferrari ahead of him and having a little bit of a gesticulate. Seems to be a lot of it going around here at Thruxton, but makes it safely through anyway. With the power that these cars have, they really do close on the others quickly. And in fact, they're closing on the TVR as well, so it looks as though the Lister has been kinder on its tyres than the Speed 12.
Mike Jordan is absolutely flying, and he is definitely closing up on Michael Caine in that TVR. Watch on board with Mike Jordan as he comes through these very fast sweeping corners. Turns into the left-hander at Noble. Back on the power, squeezing the throttle. Lifting a little bit for Goodwood. Watching the traffic ahead. Trying to pick the line, and then hard on the gas once again. You've got to really work that throttle on these fast corners.
The TVR's really struggling, about 3 seconds a lap slower than the Viper or the Lister Storm, and clearly it's shot its tyres completely, despite that massive camber angle at the front to try and keep them alive.
On board with Mike Jordan. Is he going to make the move up towards the chicane? On the brakes, late on the brakes. Michael tries to defend it, but no, he can't really, and ultimately he has to let Mike Jordan through.
The problem with the understeer is that as soon as your tyres start to give up, understeer just works them harder and harder at the front, and the TVR, we know from Bobby Verdon Rowe, has been struggling all the way through. So the Lister is just pulling away, largely because he can corner properly.
Now we're on board with Marino Franchitti in 4th place, well ahead of Ed Horner in 2nd place in the class, and look right ahead of him. Oh, then one of the Marcuses has spun right in front of Marino. He slows, almost comes to a stop to avoid it, and he is able to continue.
Poor old Marino trying to guess which way he was going to go there, and there is Shane Bland. His cars, unfortunately, both out of the race at this stage, but oh, look at those donut marks from that spin. As the TVR struggles, Michael Caine really wrestling this machine around and actually being passed by a GTO car. Well, this is... Oh, and a tyre, I think, has gone off under the bonnet, and Michael Caine out of control, firmly into the barriers.
Well, dramatic stuff. Bobby Verdon Rowe anxiously awaiting after hearing that news, and Michael Caine gets out of the car. He's okay, that's good news. Not the sort of circuit that you want to suffer a tyre failure.
I think he's been pretty winded there. The little buckle in the middle of the belts, right in the small of his stomach, looks like it's knocked the wind out of his sails. And that's a tyre problem for the Viper as well. Left front puncture for the Viper. Can Tim Harvey get it turned into the pit lane? Yes, just, but only just. Most of his 15-second lead will already have disappeared before he gets to a standstill. The team caught by surprise, as I'm sure was Harvey, and in the background, the Lister Storm passing the pit lane entry. So Harvey loses the lead, but you have to question what is going to happen to the Lister's tyres. Don't forget, Harvey had a new left front in the pit stop.
Mike Jordan, we know, has been pushing very hard, trying to make up the lost ground, but he looks okay, and Tim Harvey now gets away again.
That must have been frightening coming up the hill and suddenly having the tyre let go with all that heavy V10 engine out front. Must have kept his attention. But now he's back in second place, and even though there's 15 minutes remaining, it looks as though the Lister may have a conclusive lead.
Yeah, it's up to about 28 seconds, so Mike Jordan, once again, these guys have made a fantastic recovery. Dave Warnock spun on that opening stint, didn't hit anything, got going again, and Mike Jordan's done the work since then. Yellow flags just waving still as that TVR is stranded at Church.
And black flags for the Quaife as well. He had a pit lane speeding penalty and now a black flag. Philip Hopkins will be told off severely for ignoring the earlier flags that brought him in for his penalty.
Yes, and the penalty for this talk is exclusion. He's not going any further.
Well, the Lister reeling off the final laps, and from last to first, the last shall become first. Well, who would have thought it, but tyre troubles for his rivals and a great drive from Warnock and Jordan has meant another victory for the Lister team at Thruxton.
Good news for them, and in terms of the championship, very significant too. Meanwhile, in GTO, championship is about to be won here by Marino Franchitti and Kelvin Burt.
Well, another great drive by this pairing, and once more in amongst the front-running GT cars. I mean, they're not just good in their class, they are superb overall. And Marino allowing himself a little bit of flamboyance as he crosses the line to take the checker. A great championship win.
So Warnock and Jordan taking the victory for Lister. Harvey and Wilson with that puncture, putting them down to second. Good result for Ed Sharp and Colin Blower in third.
And yet another win for Kelvin Burt and Marino Franchitti ties up the championship. Their teammates Horner and Turner, and the TVR is now out of the hunt, and it could be an easy cruise to the flag now for Jordan and Warnock.
And the new GTO champions, Kelvin Burt and Marino Franchitti, can start celebrating after a great season.